And you chose to do it. You didn't have to do it, you chose to do it. Would you like to take this opportunity to say sorry? Would you like to say sorry?
And they should be sorry for that. They should apologise for that.
This interview is interesting for two reasons. It shows the questioning techniques that a good interviewer uses, and it shows the linguistic tactics of someone who's being evasive. Before this interview is over, Starmer will have refused to apologize at least 4 times. Hang on, because things are about to get intense. Welcome to the channel.
Prime Minister, you mentioned that you are dedicated to providing a government service for working people. You must have mentioned working people at least 13 times in your speech. What about the people who have worked all of their lives, paid into the state, pensioners? How can you justify taking away up to £300 from those formerly working people?
That's one tough question, and it's tough for a reason. This is a so-called complex question preface. The purpose of complex prefaces is to problematize the politician's stated positions and his subsequent answer. Right off the bat, Reid makes it clear that she doesn't want Starmer to simply give information, and certainly doesn't want him to go into speech mode, but to make him justify his actions. This is in line with the adversarial questioning technique that should be the standard in all political interviews. What shouldn't be the standard is this.
Governor, a moment that you shared, that the world shared with your son Gus. You were speaking, the camera caught him, so incredibly proud of you, so emotional, saying, "That's my dad."
Yeah, I don't know as a father I could have ever imagined that.
Madam Vice President, the photograph that has gone viral. You were speaking, one of your grandnieces that you were just talking about was watching you accept the nomination. You didn't explicitly talk about gender or race in your speech, but it obviously means a lot to a lot of people, and that viral picture really says it. What does it mean to you?
What's particularly compromising for Starmer about this question preface is that he represents labor, and thus the working people Reid refers to. She portrays him as an enemy of the very same people whose votes he wants.
From those formerly working people.
Well, it's tough.
Well, at least he's admitting it. This isn't a justification, though. Let's see in what other way Starmer evades the question. Next, notice his hesitation.
And I think the first thing to say is, and to explain, is why we had to do it.
Yes, it's me again, because Starmer keeps saying evasive things. It's pretty obvious that he needs to explain why they had to do it. Such an important distinction in this context. Because Reid literally asked him to. Starmer shifts to the personal pronoun we, associating with his colleagues. This way he has someone to share the blame with, which is more comfortable. Starmer's self-repairs, pauses, and stating the obvious tactic are all indications of stalling, that he's deliberately postponing the answer. Unintentionally, this is a sign to the interviewer that this is a sensitive issue, so she should keep asking. Next, it's time for one of the oldest diversion tactics in the book, blaming the opponent.
We inherited a really damaged economy. We did an audit, and we discovered an undisclosed £22 billion black hole this year, which we have to fix.
That black hole includes public sector pay rises.
Calling it a black hole is quite convenient. That way you don't have to account for everything that's in it. Especially not when you've just discovered it, which, coupled with the pronoun we that he uses consistently, is more of the same self-protective, unreliable language. And so what if they discovered it? His promises during the election were still misleading then. Why should pensioners have to suffer for this discovery? Where's the causal relation? And Starmer keeps being evasive.
So I'm not going to accept this challenge that somehow by paying that, because there's a £22 billion black hole.
Yes, he's already mentioned that. In fact, that's all he's mentioned. But anything to not have to answer Reid's inconveniently specific question. Reid's why question is a presupposition question. This question type presupposes that the other speaker has an answer, This way, it becomes very clear when the other speaker is trying to obfuscate. Presupposition questions are the questions that many politicians fear the most.
We have to deal with it this year because we need to stabilise the economy.
Why do pensioners have to pay, Prime Minister?
Please hear me out.
Yes, let's hear him out. I can't wait for his specific answer to the specific question. It certainly looks and sounds like he's totally comfortable in this situation.
If we stabilise the economy, which we're determined to do, that means that we can absolutely commit, as we do, and I do again to you this morning, we commit to the triple lock, which means that for pensioners, this year an extra £900, next year an extra £460, because I want to make sure that every pensioner is better off under Labour. But we can only do that if we stabilise the economy.
If they stabilise the economy, they'll commit to the triple lock. There's nothing like a conditional clause to grant him leeway, because that's a big if. No matter how many times he says commit in order to sound self-sacrificing.
Absolutely commit. We commit.
But anything to make his commitments, potential commitments, sound honourable. In fact, Starmer's proficient at sounding honourable when dodging questions.
There will be transgender patients, female patients, who will not want to go onto male wards. So what do we do in that situation?
Well, we have to accommodate that situation as it arises. I do not accept that this is an issue that cannot be resolved with respect and dignity. Look, respect and dignity are something I've carried with me since I was a boy. It's my driving values, which I got from my parents.
They are just words. So do we provide separate...
No, they're not.
Do we provide separate rooms?
They're not just words.
For transgender patients?
They're not just words.
Do we have...
If we stabilise the economy...
Linguistically, it allows the speaker to modify or retract his claims later on, without directly contradicting them. If at a later point someone asks, what happened to the thing you committed to? He can say, well, we haven't stabilised the economy yet. So I heard him out.
Please hear me out.
But I didn't hear him say why it's pensioners specifically who have to pay. Imagine my surprise.
Okay.
The reason we had to do this is because of the black hole left by the previous government.
But you had choices, and you chose to do it. You didn't have to do it, you chose to do it.
£22 billion.
This is the attitude every interviewer should have when the person they're sitting across isn't answering. Interviewers shouldn't ask one critical question and then give up and let the interviewee go into speech mode, like this.
Bring America what I believe the American people deserve, which is a new way forward, and turn the page on the last decade of what I believe has been contrary to where the spirit of our country really lies.
But the last decade, of course, the last 3.5 years has been part of your administration.
I'm talking about an era that started about a decade ago, where there is some suggestion, warped I believe it to be, that the measure of the strength of a leader is based on who you beat down, instead of where I believe most Americans are, which is to believe that the true measure of the strength of a leader is based on who you lift up.
Next, it's time for one of the most uncomfortable question prefaces I've ever heard.
I want to introduce you to Chrissy. She's a pensioner who's a regular viewer of Good Morning Britain. She has got in touch with us. She was an NHS nurse for 25 years. She's on the full state pension, which puts her just a few pounds over the threshold for pension credit.
Yep.
She's about to lose her winter fuel allowance. She has arthritis. She estimates her fuel bills are about to go up by £40 a month this winter, and she is dreading it because she does not feel she's going to be able to put the heating on. She voted for you, but she feels let down. Would you like to take this opportunity to say sorry to pensioners like Chrissy?
What makes this question preface uncomfortable isn't only the so-called synecdoche Reid mentions. A synecdoche is a small part of a problem that's used to represent the whole, in this case Chrissy. That Chrissy's case points to a general problem. What makes this preface particularly uncomfortable is the fact that Reid's ends up in a different place than Starmer could have hoped for, because by asking if he'd like to apologize, she's already presupposing that what Starmer's done calls for an apology. So if he apologized, he'd be admitting to a wrongdoing, and a politician would never do that unless faced with an ultimatum. Alternatively, she could have asked what he'll say to voters who feel let down, like in this softball interview.
One other question, because again, this is all new.
Yeah.
This was not, however many days ago, this was not on either of your bingo cards, especially yours. You had to clarify that you had said that you and your wife used IVF, but it turned out you used a different kind of fertility in order to have children. And then when you ran for Congress in 2006, your campaign repeatedly made false statements about a 1995 arrest for drunk and reckless driving. What do you say to voters who aren't sure whether they can take you at your word?
Well, I've been very public. I think they can see my students come out, former folks I've served with, and they vouch for me. I certainly own my mistakes when I make them. The one thing I'll tell you is
Thankfully, she doesn't. She gives a disappointed voter a name and a face, which, in theory, makes the voter relatable to viewers, as if this is the people versus Starmer. I can't wait to see how Starmer will answer this question.
To say sorry to pensioners like Chrissy.
Well, I am really concerned that we've been put in this position.
Starmer's vowel lengthenings emphasize just how much he's stalling and doesn't want to answer this question.
I am really...
If he says yes, he admits to a wrongdoing, and if he says no, he'll look unsympathetic. In political interviews, this is called a fork. A fork is when both options are undesirable, and the interviewer knows it. She says you, but Starmer makes a pronoun shift to we.
Would you like to take this opportunity?
Concerned that we've been put in this position.
This way, he has someone to share the blame with. With we've been put, Starmer minimizes his agency and thus responsibility. Starmer continues to repeat himself, using the same diversion tactic of blaming the enemy.
When you inherit an economy with £22 billion missing, it is a really difficult set of choices. But what I don't want to do is to allow the economy to run out of control. What I want to make sure is that every single pensioner, there is that increase through the triple lock each and every year.
The triple lock that was prefaced by a condition.
If we stabilise the economy...
Strangely enough, Starmer doesn't mention that here. Starmer uses the impersonal pronoun you, not the personal I, generalizing his claim, as if these choices would be difficult for everyone, and not just for him.
When you inherit...
Numbers are frequently used to tell stories of decline and create the illusion that a complex and ambiguous problem is simple and countable. This is a diversion tactic with an oversimplifying and, of course, self-serving function. In that regard, Starmer keeps repeating the £22 billion, as if there's a causal relation between so much money missing, presumably, because the viewers can't know that it's true, and taking money away from pensioners, which there isn't. It's the causal relation that Starmer won't give. Will Starmer ever apologize, or will he keep being evasive? Place your bets.
I just want to stick with this point about pensioners like Chrissy. And I asked you, would you like to take this opportunity to say sorry to voters who voted for you, like Chrissy, pensioners who are about to lose hundreds this winter because of your choices?
With this, Reid continues to fork and her appeal to viewers' emotions, anger and indignation. She speaks as if it's them against Starmer, an us and them or us and him discourse, and she doesn't let Starmer change the subject. In relation to this, it's worth noting that she says opportunity, as if she's being forthcoming and generous, which, in theory, makes Starmer's reluctance seem that more incomprehensible. These are effective rhetorical tactics.
Well, because of your choices.
What I'd say to Chrissy is this. I absolutely promised that we would stabilise the economy to make sure we never had the economy getting out of control again.
Hardly the apology Chrissy was hoping for. Starmer keeps saying absolutely, an overly convincing linguistic element that suggests that he's very self-aware, very aware of the words he uses, and evidently he's more preoccupied with that than giving direct answers to direct questions.
We then discovered £22 billion missing.
Okay, so you've mentioned, just because I've asked you a couple of times and you have just skirted around it, I did ask, would you like to take this opportunity to say sorry to the pensioners who feel hurt and less well off, certainly not better off, because you've taken away their winter fuel allowance. Would you like to say sorry?
The people who should be saying sorry are the last government who left a hole of £22 billion.
Well, at least he's acknowledging the word sorry now. That's progress, right? Of course, he's changed the context of the word, and thus the entire meaning of the question, but still.
And they should be sorry for that, and they should apologise for that.
This is mimicking and overcompensating language at the same time. Starmer mimics the angry emotions that Reid's question appeals to, and overcompensates by saying sorry and apologise. Why should they apologise? What if they discovered a black hole too, made by the previous government? It's gonna be a long list of people who should apologise, except the ones currently in charge, of course. It's never their fault.
And that people will notice you have not said sorry for making a difficult choice. You had the opportunity to, but you haven't said sorry for making what is, people acknowledge, a difficult choice.
Reid has used complex prefaces, presupposition questions, recurring forks, and association with the working people to try and win this round. And in order to make Starmer look even more irresponsible, she mentions this.
And finally, you're about to be in America, in New York. We spend $3 billion on Ukraine, $8 billion on foreign aid. What do you say to those who say, spend that money at home?
The Chrissy synecdoche is implied in this question, because why take money away from the people and give it to other nations? However, it could be argued that there isn't necessarily a contrast here, as some money in all governments will always go to other nations. Thus, a government could both be spending money at home and giving to other countries. On the other hand, in defense of Reid's question, it could be argued that this is a very large sum. Starmer's subsequent turn initial delay and pronoun shift to we are a testament to how uncomfortable this question is. Let's watch.
Spend that money at home.
I understand that argument, but I think in relation to, let's say, Ukraine, we have to understand that that war in Ukraine is not just about Ukraine. It's about Russian aggression, it's about our freedom, our democracy, the way we're able to exercise our rights in this country. It is the frontier of freedom, and so it's really important that we stand with Ukraine.
Starmer's vowel stress,
I understand that argument,
suggests that he finds the question slightly annoying. This way, he reveals that this is another sensitive issue, and that the community discourse the question forces him to use a fake isn't necessarily one he's happy to use a fake. Community discourses presuppose people's agreement about the terms used, so when Starmer uses a floating signifier like freedom, he presupposes that everyone agrees that this is the frontier of freedom. Floating signifiers don't have a fixed definition. Speakers use floating signifiers to give the impression that a complex and ambiguous issue is simple and easy to define, as if love and freedom belong to their side. It's most often subjectivity masked as objective truth.
That's why there's been pretty well political unity on this from the start.
Once again, Starmer's quick to associate with others, as if he's not alone in thinking or believing this. This way, he has someone to share the blame with. That's it for now. Until next time.
Why did you say about Rosie Duffield saying only women have a cervix? You said it is something that shouldn't be said. It is not right.
Well, look...
Do you owe her an apology?
Well, I don't want this to go back into this toxic place where everybody is divided.
Would you say sorry to Rosie Duffield for the way that she's been treated?
Look...